Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today we have with us Pastor Mike Corley. He's a former missionary that you might know about. He's also worked in the Virgin Islands as an elementary school principal and also at our children's home in Alabama. And today he's the pastor of First Fruit Baptist Church in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And so Pastor Mike, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my privilege and honor.
Well, you and Miss Kathy have had quite a life. Really, we could write a book about it, make a pretty cool movie, I think. But why don't you help us understand, how does a fellow like you, young person growing up in the 60s, and how do you end up on the mission field in, of all places, Russia? What happened there, buddy?
Well, it certainly wasn't my design. I graduated from high school, went to basic training, but before I went, as all people did, you had to take a battery of tests, and one of those tests was a language aptitude test. And the recruiter, wanting to meet his quota, said, "Have I got a special deal for you? If you'll sign up to take a language, you can go to the Army Language School in Monterey, California, and then you can see the world." And that just hit all of my buttons because I had always wanted to see the world. So I took he handed me a sheet of paper that had about 40 languages on it. And he said, "Now, the way we do things in the Army, son, I want you to pick 3 languages. You'll probably get your first one, but you have to pick 3. So this was 66. Vietnam War was just getting ramped up. I was gung-ho. So the first language choice was Vietnamese North dialect. Second choice was Vietnamese Southern dialect. And I handed the paper back to him. He said, "Son, I told you you've got to have 3 choices." So being sort of the smart aleck I was, I took my pencil, whirled it around, tapped it down on the paper, and guess what it landed on? Not Russian, but Urdu. And the recruiter laughed and he said, "Son, you'll be in Vietnam within 6 months." So I went off to basic training, and at the end of the training cycle, they posted the orders on the bulletin board. I elbowed my way up, and there was my name, rank, serial number. Defense Language Institute, Monterey, California, Russian. Russian, that wasn't one of my 3 choices. And so I went to the first sergeant and I said, "Tom, I didn't pick Russian. I don't even know where Russia is." And he looked at me and he said, "Son, you're in the Army now. You'll go where the Army wants you to go, when the Army wants you to go there, and you'll learn what the Army wants you to learn. So pack your bags and get going." And that's what I did. Wow. So went to the basic language course in Monterey, then to Berlin, Germany, then back to the intermediate language course in Monterey. Each of those courses was 9, 10 months long. And then back to Berlin the second time. And the Army decided that it wanted me to learn Hungarian. So I went to language school for Hungarian, and then went to a special assignment in Munich, Germany. While there, I had the opportunity to apply for warrant officer, which is a rank in the Army sort of between commissioned officers and non-commissioned officers. And I got selected and promoted, but the Army had a requirement that you couldn't serve in the same unit where you get promoted to officer status from. So I got shipped back to Berlin for the 3rd time. And so after Berlin, I had a couple of tactical assignments in the States, learned another language, Arabic, and then I retired. There's a lot in between then and retiring that I really can't get into, some assignments that I did. But after I retired, I went to work for a defense contractor and wound up in Huntsville, Alabama. And our son played football, high school football, and my wife and I were raised in Southern Baptist churches, so we were attending a Southern Baptist church, but weren't really happy there. Our son came home one evening and said, "Dad, we had a fifth a Friday night fellowship after the ball game at this new Baptist church down the street. I think you'd really like it. And it was the Madison Free Will Baptist Church. Richard Hendricks was the pastor. So if our son says that, we listen. So we went.
Yeah.
I told my wife when we pulled in the parking lot, I said, no, we're going to sit at the back because I don't know if these guys are pew jumpers or snake handlers or what. I'd never heard of Free Will Baptist.
Yeah.
So we went in and we were made to feel like family from the very minute we went in. We wound up joining, eventually became a deacon, Sunday school teacher, Sunday school superintendent. My wife played the organ, was a Sunday school teacher, and we were very happy there. I had a good job in the defense contracting business. My wife was a nurse. We were very satisfied in the church. And then one Sunday, I came in, and Brother Richard, who we affectionately called the engineer because he liked to railroad people into doing things.
Yeah.
In the door, he shook my hand. He said, "Guess what? You're going to Russia in February." And I said, "Yeah, right. Yeah." I didn't believe him. And he said, "No, Brother Eugene Waddell and some others from the mission are going to Russia to explore opening it as a mission field." And I called Brother Eugene and volunteered you to go as the translator. So that was my first exposure. I went to Russia with Brother Eugene and other guys, and I actually roomed with Brother Eugene everywhere we went.
Wow.
His heart really spoke to me, his heart for missions and his heart for the Lord. And I like to say he lit a spark in my heart for missions. Mm-hmm. So we got home at the end of that 3-week trip. We'd traveled to all over Russia, and we went to Ukraine and came back. And I walked in on a Wednesday night after we got back, and I said, "Sweetheart, what would you think if maybe sometime way in the distant future, maybe perhaps the Lord's calling us to the mission field?" And her jaw dropped, and she said, "Wow, the Lord asked me the same thing in my prayer time."
How about that?
So we started praying about it and felt like the Lord calling us, and we applied to the mission. And Brother Jimmy Aldridge said, "I'm sorry, you don't qualify. You're not a Bible school graduate. You don't have any experience as a minister, and so you just don't qualify. But keep trying." Mm-hmm. So I enrolled in Liberty University correspondence course, and then the mission got a letter from one of the Russian pastors that said, "We would really like for Free Will Baptist to send somebody to teach English as a foreign language." And Brother Jimmy told me that, and I raised my hand. I said, "I speak 3 languages, and I think I can teach English. Send me." So we reapplied. By this time, I had several Bible courses under my belt, and we went through the qualification process, the acceptance process at the mission, and they accepted us as missionaries. So we wound up going in 2000. We were supposed to go in 1999, but because of Y2K, we were postponed. So right after the first of the year in 2000, we went to Russia for the first time. And that was sort of unusual in itself, in that while we were on one of our assignments in Berlin, because of my security clearance, I could not travel to East Berlin, which at that time was under communist rule, but the wives could. Mm-hmm. And, our wives could also make trips to Russia on more welfare and morale trip, they were called. And so my wife was invited to go, and she said, "I've never lost anything in Russia. I'll never step foot in Russia." And that was almost 10 years to the date when we stepped off the plane in Moscow. So that's what we did. We went to the western edge of Siberia, a town called Chelyabinsk. And we served there helping teach English as a second language, but more than that, we were coordinating Free Will Baptist goals and missions in Russia. And one of those goals, the Russians had told us that because of communism, they had not been able to provide very much secondary education beyond the high school level. If a Russian citizen were even able to finish high school, if he were a believer, generally speaking, higher education was not possible for him. Mm-hmm. So they asked us to establish a Bible Institute. And Brother Jimmy and Brother Eugene Waddell, in their wisdom, said, no, we can't do that. If we set up a Free Will Baptist Bible College or Institute, then it will always be looked on as a foreign entity. We will help you. And so we partnered with the Moscow Theological Institute, and they established the Chelyabinsk affiliate of the Moscow Theological Institute. It's shortly or colloquially known as the Chelyabinsk Bible Institute, but it is affiliated. And so our graduates, when they go through about a 5-year program, they receive a bachelor's degree supported by the Moscow Theological Institute. And what these students do is come in for 2 weeks at a time from all over the Chelyabinsk region. Some of them live close enough to drive. Some of them have to take a bus or even a train to get there. They stay for 2 weeks in a building that Free Will Baptist helped the Russian Baptists purchase and renovate. And so it has student rooms in it. It has classrooms. It has a fully stocked and staffed kitchen and recreation room. So they come in for 2 weeks at a time. They do that 2 times a year until they finish all of the courses. And the courses they get are very similar to what we teach at our Bible Institute. Hermeneutics, they teach Russian, just like we teach English and how to write properly in English. They teach that for the Russian language. They teach history of, survey of the Old Testament, New Testament, then missiology. All of the courses that we teach at our Bible Institute, they teach there. They just get it in very concentrated 2-week sessions. Then they go home for 6 months and complete reading and homework assignments and come back and start it all over again.
Wow.
We are, Free Will Baptist, are continuing to support them today through the partnership that we have with IM.
That's great. So here you were in the United States Army, retired from the Army, end up down in Madison, the church that Dr. Paul Harrison pastors now, and God begins to work in you and your wife, both of your hearts, and you can kind of go back and look at your life, how God was shaping you and preparing you and molding both of you all the way through, and then have this wonderful ministry that continues to this day there in Russia. So you minister there. How many years were you a missionary there?
Well, we were in Russia a total of about 7 years, and then we came home on a home assignment, and the mission asked us if we would head up a team going to Kazakhstan. Mm-hmm. So we went back to, at the end of that home assignment, we went back to Kazakhstan, and David Outlaw and his family joined us there along with a couple of other folks. And we were there for another 2 years or so before we returned to the States. And we returned to the States on a home assignment. And while home at my home church in Madison, fellow you might know, Rodney Yerby, was the director, the chairman of the Children's Home Board. And he asked me if I would consider taking the position of the executive director. Told him, no, I'm not interested. We're going back to the mission field. And he just wouldn't give up. So we started praying about it and finally did feel the Lord leading us to go there. And we went there. It was a time of transition for the children's home. They had some problems. So my wife and I went there, and we helped reestablish the credibility, I think, of the children's home, and have what I feel is a great ministry there. With children that are hurting,
yes,
lots of different reasons.
And continues to this day. And a lot of people know about the bike time they have. All the bikers come in and bring things, and still going on strong. But that's not the end of it, is it? You end up going to the Virgin Islands. Tell us how that happened.
Well, we were happy at the children's home. We felt like ministry was going good there, and we weren't looking for anything else. And then, as that often happens, the Lord worked through other people. And a man named Beck, you might know him at the Bible college.
Bunch of trouble in that Madison church. He's got a relative there too, doesn't he?
Yes.
Jamie.
Yeah. Stephen, at that time, was a leader in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands, and he knew me from Madison. He knew me for some joint projects that we had worked together in the secular world, and he called and said, "I need a business manager. I think you're the one to do it. Will you come?" Again, no, not interested. It was out of the blue, but we prayed about it. Steve and his wife invited us to come to the Virgin Islands to look at the ministry there. So we went for a couple of weeks, saw the ministry. The Lord spoke to us, and we went. And not only did I wind up being the business manager, but principal of the elementary school. My wife was the school nurse. And again, we were happy there. We were enjoying it. How can you not be happy on an island like that with all the sunshine and stuff? But
yeah,
just like we have tornadoes in the southeast, the Virgin Island has to deal with hurricanes.
Yes.
In 2017, 2 Category 5 hurricanes hit the island within 2 weeks of each other. And the first hurricane sort of skirted the north end of the island, didn't cause a lot of damage. But 2 weeks later, Hurricane Maria came and did a lot of damage to Puerto Rico. It came across our island and did a lot of damage to the infrastructure. Kathy and I at that time both had some medical issues that we were just concerned that island medical facilities could not handle what we needed. So we came back to the States and retired.
Yeah.
Again.
So I'm going to stop you there before we go to the next part, but I do want our listeners to kind of notice. So you mentioned Stephen Beck. So he's got now he's got a doctorate degree, but he had back then a degree in engineering from Vanderbilt. You mentioned Rodney Yerby. I suppose Rodney is an engineer. Actually, Madison, there's just a lot of action that happens around there working for our country, but also using one's technical skills or math skills. Really, I'd say you guys were using a lot of that, language skills for the Lord. So there's a little something to that STEM business, isn't there? It can create opportunities for people to be bivocational or in different ways. So I hope our listeners will think about that, how God uses all the academic subjects that we have. And I think we've got a podcast with Stephen, Pastor Mike, where he talks about, hey, a person could support themselves as a pastor with a degree in engineering and so forth. But you go, they have these 2 hurricanes back to back. You guys have got some health problems. It sounds like you're going to retire for, I don't know, second or third time. I don't know what we're up to at this point. But this is 2017, and we all know you're pastoring a church now. So what happened there?
Let me regress for just a minute. When we were on deputation and go to churches and speak, 2 things stand out that I would say to churches. One is, why the Lord called me to go to Eastern Siberia and not someplace like Hawaii, I'd never understand. Well,
Yeah.
He did call me to a place like Hawaii when I went to the Virgin Islands. And then the second thing that I always told people was do everything you can to the best of your ability while you're doing it. You never know what the Lord is teaching you at that moment that He and you will be able to use later in life.
Oh, that's great.
When I learned Russian for the first time in 1966, I never dreamed that I would be using it 30 years later, as a missionary. And so the Lord did use those skills eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So
We could also make an argument for the chief warrant officer becoming a principal and the children's home, those type of administrative skills that you were learning and having to do that, I mean, you probably never thought you'd be an elementary school principal.
never thought of it. I
Yeah.
was a C student in high school. I never thought I would be an elementary school principal. And I can't overlook the leadership skills that the Army taught me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of those life's experiences come together, and the Lord has been able to use them to some degree or another. I'm very thankful for that.
One last thing I want to point out on that too is the people God put in your life. You've mentioned how Mr. Waddell, traveling with him. I've heard you mention Rodney in the Madison church and working with him as a contractor, perhaps, and then Stephen Beck.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we don't notice or think God's put that person there for a reason, and it sounds like that was happening. So quite a story.
So,
but it's not over.
No, it's not over. We came back to the States. I had prostate cancer, had surgery for that. The Lord cured me of that. Kathy had to have a couple of knee surgeries. So we thought that we were through. And we were living in Winfield, Alabama, and we have a daughter that lives in a little town in Arkansas called Cherry Valley. And they have a small 10-acre farm. Along with that, there was a mother-in-law cottage on the property, and they gave that to us and said, if you'll come and live in it, we'll take care of you in your old age. And so we went there, and Cherry Valley is an hour from anything, an hour from Jonesboro, an hour from Memphis. It's sort of out there. And there weren't any Free Will Baptist churches in the immediate vicinity, and so we started attending a small Southern Baptist church. The pastor there had just asked me to become the missions pastor, but a couple of weeks later, he came and said, there's a small Baptist church in Forest City, Arkansas. They've asked me if I know of anybody that can be an interim pastor. And so I thought of you. I went there, wound up being pastor there for 2 years. It was in 2023 at the National Association that in one of the workshops, somebody mentioned that there were over 200, I think at the time, 25 Free Will Baptist churches without a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, it really pricked my heart. Here I was, a Free Will Baptist ordained pastor serving in a Southern Baptist church. Nothing wrong with that, but so many Free Will Baptist churches needed a pastor. I knew from some Facebook posts that the Free Will Baptist Church here in Jonesboro was without a pastor. And had been without a pastor for quite a while. So I prayed about it, and the Lord led me to submit a resume. And as Paul Harvey says, the rest is history. They called me and interviewed me, and I answered the call to preach here in October of 23. But the church, typical of a lot of Free Will Baptist churches, small. We have a huge facility. We could seat 400 easily.
Mm.
Building is paid for, property is paid for, but going all the way back before COVID, there were some problems in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Then COVID hit, depleted the church even more, and then a couple of pastors after COVID, and then between the time the last pastor was here and I came was over a year, and so when I got here, the church was down to 30 people or so. I recognized from the very beginning that if we don't do something soon, the church is going to die. And so
Mm-hmm.
I I was not an experienced pastor. I missionary, loved the Lord, but I was not an experienced pastor. And so you got me hooked up with Tom Rayner's group, Church Answers, and
Mm-hmm.
wife and I both took the certificate course from there on church leadership. That introduced me to a lot of things about church revitalization, and we have been trying to implement some of those ideas. I'm working with our local state revitalization man, Travis Alexander, and we are trying to turn our church around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting ready to introduce the Hope Initiative to our
Mm-hmm.
church, and that that's what I'm trying to do is rebuild our church.
This is great, and we should say you did the Know Your Community. I think your daughter
Yes,
was on there too, and so it's really there's a psychologist that talks about to age well, one must always be doing something new. And that is you, my friend. Whether it be a missionary or a principal or pastoring a church, trying to revitalize a church. And then they also say, and keep moving, keep
sir.
going. And
Don't
that's what we're
retire.
doing.
Don't retire, even if you retire.
Yeah. There's something to do. And your poor daughter invites you to come out there so she can take care of you. And now you've put her to work. So,
She
um,
is our secretary, and I've moved away from where she lives. We
yeah, I thought about that, an hour away. But you and Miss Kathy, y'all are getting it done, buddy, and still trucking along. So what a story, you know. So we go all the way back, 1966, United States in Vietnam. We've got the
no,
Cold
I
War.
wasn't. Oh, I wasn't in Vietnam.
You wasn't,
Yeah,
but like that
yeah,
recruiter said to you, or you're going,
yeah,
it looked like it, but that was a hard time period. And people that have read history and probably people that remember those days know Cold War was pretty hot back
yeah,
then.
sure.
So you weren't using, well, there was a reason they had you learning Russian
Yeah,
and all the rest of it. So you went through all of that, ended up at Madison, and did have ministered in such different ways. Really, it's a great life, buddy. It's just a great life. So, well, I want you to know we appreciate you. We appreciate your willingness to answer the call, to accept the mission, each part of your life that God gave you, and you're still serving. And this is a challenge, what you're doing now, and not easy in any way.
no, sir, it's not.
Still learning new stuff though, when you're going through this certificate program and all the rest of it and helping these wonderful people in Jonesboro. And we greatly appreciate you. And I hope we can all learn from you how, like you said, do things with excellence, and then God will use it along the way. Thank you, Pastor Mike.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank you for listening today. Maybe you know somebody that would benefit from this podcast. They're thinking about retirement, or they think they're too old to do this or that. This would be a good podcast for them. Also, a good podcast for young people thinking about how we apply ourselves in whatever situation we would be in, because who knows how God's going to use that later. Whatever you do, remember every little thing we do, it really does count. It really does make a difference. And when we work together, we truly do accomplish more. We're better together. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.